Okay, we are now recording, and I will read the public meeting notice. Bear with me here. Oops. Shoot. Okay. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting is being conducted remotely. This meeting will be recorded and be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. The following information is provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the link below to join the public meeting webinar. And the link was provided for the benefit of everybody in the published agenda. From a telephone, dial the toll-free number 888-475-4499 and enter webinar ID 792-737-0353 and then the pound sign. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Okie dokie. So it is 5:34 and we'll call the meeting to order. And I'll start off with public comments from the public. And you could just either use the raise hand feature or just unmute yourself if you wish to speak. There's not too many of us here. Okay. Is there any public comment from the committee? Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks. Just for clarification, I didn't know if we were going to have, if the town was having someone do the minutes or if I should do the minutes.
So I am not sure the status on the minutes, to be quite honest with you. I thought we had a minutes clerk, and she sometimes didn't come to the meetings because they're all recorded and put on there and she can review them after. But I haven't seen minutes since we got the minutes clerk. I don't think we've seen minutes from a minutes clerk, maybe once, but so I'm not exactly sure what the deal is with that. So I guess if you wouldn't mind, Brian, maybe taking some minutes.
I'll take minutes tonight and we can see if we have someone doing it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Anybody else? Okay. So I would like to take, I should have thought about this before I posted the agenda. I'd like to take this out of order a little bit. I wanted to talk through, we haven't done a committee reorganization in a while. So I wanted to take that first. I did also, maybe we should wait until Michael Ray gets here, just so, because I know he said he'd be about 5 minutes late. So I see Christina needs to be admitted.
Yeah, can you let me in? Sorry, I'm just switching to my computer. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Sorry about that. So I guess given that, maybe we'll take it right in order. That's fine. We'll just do it in order. So the major thing on the agenda this evening is to discuss the new charge of the committee. I really just, I put it on there to just, I see this meeting as kind of just a regroup, talking about the charge, if there's any comments, questions that any of us have relative to that, and to start, I don't want to use the word spitball, but to start, I guess, master planning a way forward for how we're going to fulfill the new charge as it's stipulated. So I figured I'd read it. Do you all have it in front of you? the document? Okay. I'll read it just so that if there's anybody listening, they can hear it. Sharing screen tonight for me is going to be difficult because I'm on one monitor here, but let me read. Well, yeah, let me read it. Let's see. Bear with me, I gotta find it. Give me a minute here.
I can read it if you need me to.
Sure, Brian, go ahead. I'm pulling it up, but it'll take 30 seconds. But go ahead. Yeah, Brian, go ahead. I'll take you up on that.
Town of Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee Charge, Section 1, General. The Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee, formerly the TC Passios Building Design Committee, will continue to work with any contracted architectural and engineering firms as they become available to review space needs for town offices, school uses, and community space at the building and/or land known as the TC Passios. Additionally, the committee will work to prioritize and/or rank the existing space usage requests and explore a variety of design permutations at different estimated budget tiers that would meet the needs of the town according to those priorities. The committee may analyze, discuss, and investigate other town-owned buildings and properties in their recommendations as they deem necessary to fulfill this charge. This committee will prepare viable, cost-effective solutions to the select board that conform to all of the town's existing financial and fiscal policies and take into consideration all large-scale capital expenditures projected for the next 10 years. Section 2, membership and meetings. The committee was created both in accordance with the designer selection procedures, where the town manager designates a group of individuals to conduct the designer selection process in accordance with Chapter 12-2 and Chapter 12-3 of the town bylaws on building committees. The committee is an ad hoc committee and the composition is according to Chapter 12-3 of the town bylaws. The committee is composed of 7 regular members serving not to exceed 30 days following completion of the building project. There shall be 1 member from the planning board to be appointed by the planning board, 1 member from the school committee to be appointed by the school committee, 1 member from the finance committee appointed by the finance committee, 1 member from the select board to be appointed by the select board, and 3 citizen at-large members appointed jointly by the select board and the town moderator. Voting power. All duly appointed members shall have full voting power. 3, resignation. Members of the committee shall notify the chairman of the committee, the town manager, and the select board of their resignation. 4, vacancies. Any vacancies shall be filled in the same manner as the original appointment. 5, representations. Members shall get approval of the committee prior to making statements, presentations, or joining activities on behalf of the committee. 6, election of the officers, including at least the chairman, vice chairman, and clerk, shall be elected annually by a majority vote of the committee. 7, a quorum shall consist of 4 members. 8, the recording of minutes and votes of all meetings shall be conducted as prescribed by the open meeting law. Copies of the minutes shall be submitted to the town clerk as prescribed in the town bylaw and according to the open meeting law. 9, the committee shall comply with all state laws and local bylaws. This charge was amended by the select board at their January 4th, 2022 meeting and may be amended at any future meeting.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that.
Greg, could I make a comment at this point?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Just open it up to comments. So feel free.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put you on the spot. Would you give me your interpretation of the representation clause?
All right, let me read it again.
As chair.
All right, so I think what you're referring to is item 5 under section 2, representations. Members shall get approval of the committee prior to making statements, presentations, or joining activities on behalf of the committee. So, you know, I'm no lawyer, but the way I read that is if plain face reading of that to me says that if we're going to send a representative to another committee like the select board, to give an update or to do something, that the committee should review what the at least the bullet points of what that is going to entail and approve it.
Okay.
I don't,
go ahead, finish.
I think where the gray area in this comes in is when each of the four members of the respective boards, planning board, school committee, finance committee, and select board members go back and give an update. Do every single time that they give an update, we have to vote to authorize them to give an update, to tell them exactly what they should say in the update? I don't think so. I don't think that's what it says, but if that's what it means, I guess we'll need the select board or whoever composed that document to tell us. But I think that I guess the way I interpret that would be, formal presentations, at least before other boards and committees. What else does it say in there? It says joining activities on behalf, presentations. So it's statements, presentations. That I think covers what I just said. I'm not sure what joining activities on behalf of the committee would be. I don't know what that would be, but that's my thought, Dave. I don't know if anybody can certainly disagree with me, because I'm not certain either. But that's how I would take it. Go ahead, Matt.
I also had a similar concern, and when I presented the planning board meeting a couple meetings ago, I actually asked the same question of the land use director, and he had a similar take on it. Not including the committee reports was his take, but again, he's not a lawyer either, nor am I. I'm really not sure that something like that needs to be litigated. I think it just means that outside of committee reports, if one of the members is speaking about the group, casually, I don't think would apply, but I think if there's like a presentation or you have like a YouTube page or something, I don't know. But I think the committee reports, I don't think would be included in that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Go ahead, Christina.
Don't we already have a clause? I think it's probably the same thing that we've already had to sign off, like just don't talk about social media on it, or don't speak for the committee as a whole. I guess I have a question, because are we still now just the town hall, like the TCP town hall? Like that was our main charge. It makes it seem like we now have all the town buildings and figure out what to do with them. So it's a bit confusing. And then it says large scale expenditures for the next 10 years. Well, I know they've talked about potentially doing a school over. So say that happens in 10 years. How do you prepare for something you don't know? Do we take hypothetical situations? Like what happens if they do build a school? So that it's just very vague. So I don't know if that was done intentionally to give us power to finally say, hey, town hall would be great as a daycare or the after school. Let's revamp into that. Like, so it's not as selective, which I like, but I just want to make sure we're looking at a correct charge, I guess, to make sure we're targeting what we need to. So I don't know if Michael Ray has a better idea of that when he comes, and that's something to ask him. It just seems, I like the vagueness to it, but with the vagueness, there's also the unknown of what we're really supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I have a thought on that, but I'll let Brian go first. Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks. I was going to just say I agree with Matthew. I think committee updates are fine. It's the statements on behalf of the committee that I would be concerned about. That we just want to make sure that doesn't happen. Similar to the school committee too. It's like the chairman is the spokesperson for the committee. It's similar to that, I think. I don't think we have any issues.
If Dave Blatt doesn't have a comment, I'd like to finish now that I've heard from the rest of you.
Go ahead, Dave.
Two concerns, and the first one, it's neither here nor there, I guess, at this point, and that is that I have never seen a clause like that in any other committee, board, anything in this town before. Yes, it was a kind of agreed to, excuse me, procedure, but I have never seen it spelled out in any other charge. So again, I wonder why that was included in this one and hasn't been for decades. Secondly, it does speak to my concerns during the last process of information being disseminated to other boards that this committee never saw because of the timeframes that they came in at. This would, in my eyes, stop that, would not allow it to be disseminated until we had a chance to review information that we had been waiting for and came in at the last minute before another meeting where it gets presented, before we even get a chance to vet it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an issue for sure, Dave. Yep, I agree with that.
So
So,
I just wanted
Michael-
to make the point and get a feel from the rest of the committee. I don't want to make.
Yeah, no, but let's, Michael Ray texted me and said he'd be on in 2 or 3 minutes, so we'll ping him on that when he gets on. You know, to Christina's point, or Christina's comments, I think are good. So, yeah, I think, you know, I've got to be honest here. I have to get my brain back in the mode here of TCP, because we've been on kind of a hiatus for a few months, and even the vote by the select board, they were talking about this kind of, you know, a month ago or more now. So, but I think what if I could paraphrase what the select board is trying to empower us to do, is to give us a little bit more latitude to explore, is to expand our scope so that we don't feel limited by the scope that they gave us, so that we can give I'm going to call it a roadmap, put together a roadmap for the town relative to town space needs. And so, you know, the work that we put in for the TCP renovation is certainly, you know, maybe we'll call it a starting point, but I think that they wanted to empower us where that previous charge was really narrowly limited to just looking at the renovating or building a new building at the TCP location with the program that we had come up with. Now they've expanded this and said what they really want us to do is they want us to take a look at all the uses that are all the needs, all the space needs, rank them, and have the ability to think creatively about ways to utilize other town buildings such as the Ritter and the Town Hall building in the same discussion, so that we don't feel handcuffed by you know, by the charge of the committee. And at the end of the day, we'd be putting together sort of a ranked or a priority list of uses and a roadmap for the town of how we might fund them. So we might come up with a phased approach where we do something first now, and then you know, and that opens up space, and then we shift space in or something like that. And we kind of plan that out and map that out over a period of time, I think, is what folks are, you know, the select board is getting at. So, so yes, they gave us more rope, if you will. And I think that was the spirit as to why, was so that, because I think what we told them, at least what I told them in part, was that we felt a little bit handcuffed by the charge. There was a lot of other questions that were surrounding this that are really important questions, like what's going to happen with the buildings we vacate, for one thing, that we couldn't, we were powerless to discuss really, because it wasn't a charge of our committee. So they've sort of given us a little bit more, they've expanded the scope of our charge so that we can feel empowered to do that, and to come up with a macroscopic, and by the way, that's why they changed the name of the committee to the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee, so that we can feel empowered or be empowered to come up with a roadmap for how we're going to solve the current space needs issues that we have in town. So, you know, that's my summary. I might not have it completely correct, but after sitting through the select board meetings from a month or so ago and hearing them talk through that, that's sort of my Greg Roy's interpretation of the revised charge. Michael Ray's with us. But I'll let Christina talk first because I was responding directly to her. Go ahead, Christina.
You muted.
Thank you, Matt. Sorry. So I guess I could address this to either you or Michael Ray. Will we get a list of like what we're supposed to prioritize? Like I know the town hall offices were part of it, but is the Turkey Hill food pantry still part of it? Are the other things which people in the town meeting said, well, that's not really a town office issue, it's not our issue. Is that still part of our list? Will our list grow and expand what the town needs? Or is this something more like defined to say, okay, it's just the town hall, it's just the building, it's just this, like not the, like the building department, it's just the storage of the records. And then the other question is, I know we can theoretically say, okay, we can put something in the Ritter, something in the town hall, but how are we going to realistically fund that if we have no money for an architecture? Like how could, like, it's one thing to theorize this, but we all know these buildings need work done to it. So now we're going to go back to the, do we come up with a roadmap and then go to the town with it and then say, okay, well, we need funding from an architecture to see if it's even feasible? Or do we get the funding first and then find things that are feasible?
Great question. Great question. That's all to be determined, I think, by our committee. I think we need to. So I think to answer your first question, I think the prioritization of uses and compiling a list of uses, town uses and things, and prioritizing them. I think that they want us to do that. I think they want us to do that homework. I don't think they're going to be giving us a list. I think they want us to do that. Your second thing about how do we do it, because we don't have any professional support. That's a great question. We're going to need some eventually. This is not something we're bringing to Springtown meeting. The results of this committee, it's going to be it's out, and we're going to need to have support along the way, and we're going to have to map out where we go from here, what our outline is going to be as a committee, like how we're going to proceed through this charge to deliver. And then I just, my mind tells me that once we do that, we're going to be able to, there'll be points where we're going to have to say, listen, we're going to need to get some cost estimates now to understand what these certain alternatives are going to cost before we can go any further, you know, that kind of thing. So that's all to be determined. It's kind of a, I don't know. It's a much broader exercise than it was before. So we have some thinking to do about how we're going to put it together and how we're going to proceed. Michael Ray.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roy. And the rest of the committee, good evening. I apologize for being a bit late tonight. I think I mentioned to Mr. Roy that I had a 5 o'clock appointment that was going to end at 5:30. I was going to be late, but then it ran a little later. So I wanted just to give some insight into this charge. It seems as if there's a lot of questions about it, and just to give some clarification from my perspective as a member of the select board on what our goal was here and what we're trying to accomplish. So the thought is that, you know, it really was, this is a response to town meeting and us coming out of town meeting. With the understanding, there were a couple of things that happened, right? I mean, as we discussed, when we went into the town meeting in the fall, I think that there was this general kind of thought that we were going to end up with there was a hope rather that we could get a cost that was less. Obviously that didn't happen. And then when we're looking at a new build, you know, that new build cost came in with all the bells and whistles and all the soft costs included, you know, we were approaching $40 million, and we cannot afford $40 million. And then even if we look at a $30 million solution, we also cannot afford a $30 million solution. So the intent here is to not undo any of the work that's already been done, but to take the work that's been done and to build upon it. So, you know, one of the things that we had mentioned that we already did was that we already prioritized and ranked kind of the needs. And so I think that what's being asked by this change of charge is just to detail kind of in a written format what that was. You know, how did we, and some of this, again, we've already done this with prioritizing, and I think it's just kind of having creating a more formalized format for that. The other thing that really came up is there seems to be kind of two approaches to how we should go forward. I think that, you know, my mindset is that it is going to be impossible to do it. As a member of the select board, the conversation I had with the fellow board members was that it's going to be impossible to do anything at TC Passios if we do not present a solution for for the town hall and for Ritter Building. Now, I hoped that we could kind of have some good credit here and say, hey, we're working on a solution in one area and we're about to pivot, you know, the plan ahead as we discussed, and start focusing on these other things. I think that what you get is that a lot of people, you know, I work in this industry daily, you know, so this is something that I do every day. I know Mr. Roy does it every day, as well as several of the other members of this committee does this every day. But a lot of members of the community don't. And a lot of times I think what happens is people latch on to a portion of a plan. They don't like that portion. And so then they disagree with the entire thing. And I think the fear or the concern from the select board, which is why we are not trying to create another building reuse committee, is that if we broaden the scope too much, then that's essentially what we become. We become this building reuse committee. We have multiple parts that we can't get consensus around any of them. And so nothing happens. And I think the vision here is let's continue with this Turkey Hill plan. TC Passios plan. Let's continue with the TCP plan. Let's figure out how we can decrease this square footage to meet these needs. And at the same time that we're doing that if we cannot accommodate a need in the building and we just say it can't be accommodated, that it also opens up the other buildings as being potential solutions. Whereas one of the feedback that we received was that our impression of this was that our scope was too limited to really consider that. So as an example, you know, when you have the school committee come here and they kind of said, well, this isn't going to work, and they gave us our list of reasons why, and most of us were pretty skeptical, I think, of what their rationale was, and I think some of us were left with the opinion of, well, why can't the Ritter building work? That if the problem is a boiler system and so you can't have walls to the ceiling, then why don't we just look into what that's going to cost? Because if you can decrease your square footage of a new building and just shift around people and at sort of smaller amounts of money, then that would be a viable plan. So I to summarize, I think the intent is that we figure out a solution for the consolidation of town offices and school uses and community uses, that we still focus on that, that we still go with what we've already done so far, but that as we downscale this, that we also focus on the other buildings. And, you know, I don't know if at this point we want to take the approach of let's solve town hall, let's solve Ritter first. But I think that would be a worthy discussion, because what I consistently heard was that town hall and Ritter, really town hall, is what everyone has the emotional attachment to. And so if you don't have a good plan for that building, it's hard if people are all they can see is, what if this becomes another old primary school? And so I think that, you know, knowing that our threshold here is 67%, which is overwhelming consensus, that I think the vision is that we we put forward a plan for the TCP that's going to have implication on Ritter and Town Hall, and that we incorporate that into it. That's kind of the thought process. And I think that there also is another aspect of this, which is that the select board is in a way outsourcing some of what we probably ordinarily would do to this committee, with the understanding that the membership of this committee is probably better suited for the task. Because of our backgrounds as in facilities, and the fact that we have citizens who are not elected into any roles that are in this board, so you get a different input when you aren't talking about people who hold political office as well. So that was kind of the thought process that went into it. I partially wrote this new charge. Tom Alonso and I wrote it for the most part, and it was edited by the other members of the board. And my opinion was that I think that this would accomplish what we were trying to do previously. But another aspect of this is that we also have a dollar amount, is that we're going to plug in a dollar amount here of a do not exceed, that everything that we do has to stay within a certain dollar number. And that dollar number is around 20 million. So, whatever, we don't have that definitive, but it's around $20 million, that whatever solution we come up with all together, that once we start getting beyond $20 million, $22 million, $23 million, that then we start affecting the TC, the Turkey Hill project. And I think that the town has a strong history of always supporting, I will say always, maybe always isn't true, but the town has a strong history of supporting school projects. And I think that there's a belief that, whatever we need for the schools, that's going to happen with a lot less controversy. And we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot and then have a lot of limitations on that, because let's just be real. The quality of the school system affects all of our property values. And we know that, which in turn affects tax revenue. And so, property values affect how we can operate and how we finance the town. So funding our schools is not just good for the benefit of children, which is of course our focus in the next generation, but it's also beneficial to everyone who lives in town. And so that is the kind of the more in-depth explanation of why we are here and why we think that this new charge will resolve these concerns. The other language on the charge, as far as what was in section 2, this is unchanged from what was previous. I don't know if we had previously published or shared all this language with the committee, but most of that has not changed, or to my knowledge, all of it hasn't changed.
So we had a specific question raised earlier before you got here, Michael Ray, about item number 5, which was the part about representations.
Yes.
Are you saying that hasn't changed?
No, what this says is for number 5, members shall get approval of the committee prior to making statements, presentations, or joining activities on behalf of the committee. The committee that's being referred to is the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee. This is not referring to the committees or boards that appointed you to be here. So the expectation is that none of us make representations about what this committee is doing without the permission of this committee, and that we don't go before any other boards and provide presentations without the permission of this committee. That's not to say that we don't do committee reports, because Ryan's going to have, everyone who's on an elected board or appointed board is going to have to provide a committee report. So I think the expectation is continue to provide committee reports, but what we don't want is we don't want anyone going on social media, on Facebook or anything like that, and then trying to represent the whole group. That we want to just keep the hierarchy, and to us, this is just standard language. There's really nothing new here.
Okay.
I have a question about that, if I could, because I brought it up initially, Michael. So I was concerned about seeing it in print. I've never seen it before in any other charge of any other committee, and apparently we've never seen the charge of this committee in this format. Okay, putting that aside, my concern is in our last process, there were a number of times that information was being shared through the representative to another board on information that this committee had been waiting for and never saw before it was presented to another board. And I voiced my concern about that before, and I voiced my concern about that again. Now,
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this before you got here, Michael Ray, and I'll say this a little bit more directly now, Dave. I think I'm going to take the blame on that because we, I can't even remember their names. DeGiorgio was getting us information at the last minute, cost information that we were preparing for, that we needed to disseminate to the finance committee and to the select board meeting, the select board members, so that they could make decisions before our next meeting in place. And I disseminated it, so I'm going to take blame for that as the chairperson. But I hear your point. I think that needs to be tightened up.
and I think as a committee, we would have taken a different direction at that point, because it would have been in our purview to put the brakes on everything, go to the select board and say, we need to shut this down. It can't go to town meeting because it hasn't been properly vetted. As it turned out, is what was done, but in a very haphazard and confusing way for the townspeople.
Yeah.
Not allowing a committee that worked for 2 years to come to that point and then not allowed to discuss and determine the path forward from that point, I think was unconscionable, to use Dave Rogers' terminology.
Yeah, and Dave Rogers is a good friend, and I also want to, I think that I'm partially, I'm probably in the hot seat here with your comment, Dave, because I think that you're referring to me. But, I think that I have a responsibility to the select board to update them routinely on the workings of this committee as the select board creates the committee, and as this is an advisory committee to the select board. So, I think that there's a need for regular scheduled kind of updates that are formal and on behalf of the committee. But there's also, as a member of the select board, there's an expectation that I will be forthcoming with where we are at with things. And I know that I think that there's an opportunity as we go forward to discuss how we can frame that, so that way whatever is being said in the select board meetings, which I think has higher viewership of all the town meetings, that message can be a little more controlled. So I do accept some of that feedback that you're offering, Dave, because I think that you're getting to a good point. And I do understand the complications we were at the end of, as we headed into special town meeting. And, one thing I will caveat though is the opinion of the select board is that all things recommended by this committee goes through the select board. So this committee organically does not have the ability to put anything on a warrant, unlike the planning board, which can put anything on the warrant. That the select board has to approve everything that this committee presents. And so it is a little bit different because we're a little more symbiotic in our relationship with the select board, unlike most other boards and committees that are a little more independent.
Yeah.
Okay, final comment, and then I'll let you guys hash out where you want to go with this. Call it what you want, but if you listen to Michael Ray's description as to why the charge was developed the way it was, you can call it any committee you want to call it, reuse committee minus the old primary building. That's exactly what this is, with no end game and no specific product at the end of this process expected. Sorry about that. I get calls. So I just want to make that statement. I mean, we all discussed this in the latter processes that we went through before and had no desire to be involved in a reuse committee. This is a reuse committee by a different name. That's just my feeling. Thanks.
I can accept that feedback, Dave. I don't agree, but I think that reasonable people can disagree from time to time.
Yep.
And that, that's just part of the process. But, I would focus on that first sentence of the charge, that is, aside from the name change, that's largely unchanged, and that's the same charge that we previously had, that the additional information kind of comes after that. with kind of just guiding process.
But there's no clear product from my perspective that we're expected to develop. There's a whole bunch of things that actually, to my thinking, our paid professionals in town should be doing a lot of it, not charged to this committee. 10-year forecasting and all of that, that's the town managers and the accounting department's responsibilities, not ours. You take a project, you get a dollar amount for it, and they plug it into those scenarios, not us. Not an ad hoc committee or whatever you want to call us. It's giving this committee a charge that they don't have the information available to them, and under normal circumstances would not be even a part of that process. I'll leave it alone from now forward here for the rest of the meeting, because I want this to move forward and have you guys sort out in your heads whether you want to be involved and where you want to take this. Thank you.
Christina, did you have something you wanted to say, or was that just a stray hand?
No, it was a stray hand. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, it's okay.
May I just want to offer a comment too. I am quite frustrated generally at kind of the situation that we're in as a community. I mean, just speaking more broadly and unrelated to, that's where I'm at. I think it's kind of shameful that we can't seem to get consensus around this. I also think it's kind of, it bothers me on a, I don't know what level it is, but it bothers me that, to me, what seems like a clear path forward in terms of we have buildings that are falling apart, we need to do something about them, that this kind of challenge is more difficult given our form of government. That if we had a mayor, then we would have a committee or a council or an office and staff that could come up with these kinds of plans and just implement them. And if you don't like them, then you can unseat the people in 4 or 5 years when they're up for re-election. But the challenge of what we have is that, we have a multiple decades of history of a lot of people trying to tackle this problem and us still being in the same position. And that's just a reality. We have a school that needs a new roof, but we don't want to spend $1 million on a new roof and we're going to tear the building down. I think that we kind of have, I feel like we're in this position of this if, but, then, or type of sort of situation where, we really just need to simplify, in my opinion. I think we have to keep this as simple as possible for the voters. So that way we give them what they want. And if the voters don't want much and they say, let's keep the status quo, then we need to be prepared to listen to the voters and do what they say. I think that the new format is better. Part of the other thing is that, with a select board, that the last charge, none of the current members of the select board agreed to that charge. That was decided by membership that was no longer in place by the time this committee was mostly formed. And so, as we got into this, I think some of this is respecting the people that came before you and respecting their process. But I think what you have now is you have a product from the current board of saying, this is what we think the path forward is. That it's not as limited as just one building, one problem, but that we need to look at one building, focus on that, but also address anything that deals with everything else. Hopefully this solution gets us to where we need to be, hopefully. But if it doesn't, I don't know what other options are left on the table, in all honesty, because we've gone the approach of rehabilitating a building. We've gone the approach of building a new building. What this approach says is let's pare all this stuff down. Let's fit it within a budget and let's try to see what we can do for all these things. And really the guiding principle is that total dollar amount that we need to stay under. And if it doesn't work, I don't want to be crass in saying this, then it doesn't work. And I don't know if that's necessarily representative of a failure on our part, as much as it's hard to ask people when 30% of the town are seniors on fixed incomes. It's hard to ask people for more money. And I don't know how we overcome that without providing viable solutions.
Michael, I don't disagree with you. One comment I'd like to make is that, as you said, the charge that we were given was basically given to us by a totally different select board. And there was also a totally different select board before them that gave the charge to the Building Reuse Committee, which was to find a place to repurpose or to move town offices or consolidate town offices. That was the plan of record that came forward into the present select board's tenure. The problem with that is that this town can't move forward fast enough to get a project completed before we move on to a new set of politicians in town and a different picture of what the town wants to do. So we spend 5 years or a decade trying to go in one direction, and then boom, all of a sudden that was not totally wasted time, but and work, but all of a sudden it's not the direction they want to go. So we pivot. 5 years from now, I see us pivoting again. I just don't see a consensus in this town ever. You've got to propose a project within my eyes, within a 2 year period, and have it complete within 5, or you're going to have a whole different citizenry that's paying attention, and they're not going to be on board with a project that was thought of half a decade ago. So that's the circular pattern that we've been stuck in, and I wish you luck getting out of it.
All right, so I'll just take it in order here. Brian.
Thanks. I think, yeah, I'm hearing a lot of frustration. I think it is a frustrating process and frustrating history, but I think the path ahead, I think we have some good ideas. I think we can make some headway. I think we prioritize, like we have to prioritize the list, go through that. And I think even at the meeting that we had with the select board, I remember asking Mr. Alonso replied that that there was going to be money, that when we come back, they're going to be able to find money to get architects. So when I think we prioritize that list, we can get to the architect and be able to get that number under the 20 million mark, wherever it fits of our prioritization list. I think we also have to look at what we could put into town hall and Ritter and look at that, whether that's kind of simultaneously, okay, what fits best there, but also what do we really want to put in TCP? And then I think the big number, I think everybody's worried about the big number. I wonder if we can also go to, say, capital planning to revamp the Ritter building, or capital planning to revamp town hall, so that we're still getting the TCP under the 20 million, but also getting funds for the other buildings to revitalize them as well. So I think we have some ideas that we can keep moving forward.
Thanks, Brian. Go ahead, Christina.
So I just have a few, I guess, thoughts or questions. I know, Dave, you talked about the town meeting, and I agree. It was a really hard time, I think, for all of us, and none of us really wanted to sit there and say we were part of a board that was about to bring a $40 million project to the town, where we all knew no one wanted to pay for that or fund that. But I do think in light of that, we found out some really positive takeaways. Like, the town doesn't want a $40 million building project. So, okay, we know that now. We understand that there's a lot of feelings of, we're willing to pay for a town hall, but we want it to be a town hall. We don't want the multi-use purpose. And if we pay for this town hall, then what happens to everything else? So I think it kind of defined our scope of work moving forward to say, okay, we do have the town on our side to pay for a new town hall at TCP, but what are we going to do with the Ritter building, and what are we going to do with the current town hall? So I think that did give us more of a charge going forward and kind of guided us along the way. The one thing that I'm kind of worried about, and I know, is the 10-year plan. Where is this $20 million coming from? Because in my head, you have the school that may or may not be coming. You have Marshall Park that they're redoing. You have the old, I think it's Turkey Hill, the one behind the Ritter building that they're redoing. So that's 3 substantial projects. So I know you say 20 million's the limit, but I honestly am scared of that number because I don't think 20 million is going to pass with everything else going on. Because they talked about raising taxes last time and that got everybody in uproar. So for me, even saying 20 million might be too high. We might have to rein that into something lower to actually get it passed.
If I can just respond to that point, Christina, the way that it's worded, that last sentence says that the committee will prepare viable, cost-effective solutions to the select board that conform to all the town's existing financial and fiscal policies and take into consideration any and all large-scale capital expenditures projected for the next 10 years. So the town manager prepares a 10-year outlook. She just did this. We're going to have a presentation at our meeting. I just read it over the weekend. So we're going to have a presentation at our meeting next week that goes over this capital, this 10-year plan. And that's all that we're being asked to do. We're not being asked to create one. We're just being asked to be consistent with whatever's in that plan. We don't need to add any more information to it. We don't need to verify the accuracy of it. We just need to use that 10-year plan. And so what is included in that is some wiggle room that there's a number that's being plugged in to assume that the Turkey Hill project will happen and what that rough cost will be. And then there's also there's also an understanding that we need to have some capacity in order to be able to afford what's going to happen with Marshall Park, what's going to happen with the old primary school. So I'm not giving you that number yet, but I'm advising you that that number is going to land somewhere around 20 million. Based on our preliminary kind of review, that's roughly what it is, but we will get a very definitive dollar amount from the select board or the town manager's office. That is kind of our cap.
That's good to know. Thank you for that clarification. Dave Blatt.
All right, real quick, I just, as an opinion here, I do like the new charge because I think you guys have heard from day one. My belief is if we don't talk about all of the buildings, that any building will fail. That, there is a pain point in this town for having no plan and empty buildings and paying to have an empty building. So I do like the charter that way. I also believe that our charter at this point is more of to present options to the select board and eventually to the town, that the town might vote on an option. And that option could be solving this with multiple buildings, solving it with one building, or saying you ain't gonna ever solve this. So I guess those could be the three options, but the fact of the matter is that's what I feel like. I feel like we understand, we have a better understanding after doing this process of what folks are looking for together, what folks are looking to have separate, but more importantly, having the ability to now open the scope and looking at the town versus just a single building. So that's I'm excited about the charter. To me, it's something that is actually now simpler than it was when we first started. So I'll go. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. So my purpose tonight was really to have that kind of level of discussion. I wasn't intending to get into the nuts and bolts of where we go from here. I think that's probably our next meeting, is to really try and outline what the committee steps are. But I just wanted to have a roundtable discussion about the committee charge. I guess make sure we all understand what it is, which I think we do. I think it's it might not be the clearest thing. To Dave Pacios's point, it's uncomfortable sometimes. The other one was pretty simple. It's to develop design development drawings and a cost estimate for the renovation of TCP. There was a clear deliverable, and this one doesn't have that, and that's going to be challenging. I think it's going to take more, and maybe this was by design. I think it's going to take more collaboration with boards. I think it's going to take collaboration between this board and the select board, and probably this board and the and maybe the finance committee and the town manager to really I think I see that as a collaborative effort here, through the process, which I think is probably a good thing. Every time we've gone to the select board and had an open discussion about things, it's been, I found it to be positive, in that it's advanced the discussion. It may not have been the easiest thing to do, but it was, the discussion may not have been the easiest sometimes, but it was, it was helpful for the advancement of the discussion. So I see that as really integral to the steps moving forward. So I guess the way I see it is, we are in a stage now where we have to figure out how we're going to proceed through the charge. What's step one, what's step two, what's step three of the committee, and that's going to take some thought, some more brainstorming, and I don't see doing that today, but I really just today wanted to have a discussion about the charge, make sure we understand it, and with the expectation in a future meeting we'd really start to roll our sleeves up, so to speak, and get to work. That okay with everybody, or?
Yep.
I get some applause. Okay. All right.
Greg,
So-
I need to make a comment to all of you. It's my expectation, looking at the agenda item for tomorrow night's meeting of the Finance Committee, that because of an issue directly related to that clause that we talked about earlier in our charge, there is some question about representation of the Finance Committee. So it's my expectation that this will be my last meeting with you guys. So I just want you to know that it's been a pleasure working with you. I think we did a fantastic job with what we were charged to do. We brought an incredible project forward that would have taken care of all of the needs that we identified in the town. Unfortunately, it came out with a gold-plated cost attached to it. I still believe in that work we did and the needs that were identified there. And I hope we just don't build tar paper shacks to accommodate these needs just because we want to cut the dollar amount and have buildings like we have presently that are 15 years old and need major repair and renovation because they weren't built in a quality way in the first place. So again, it's been a pleasure working with you all. I could be very wrong, but I expect this will be the last meeting as a representative of the Finance Committee.
Well, thanks for that, Dave. I mean, obviously, that's we've been through a lot. So, and you've been a big part of that. So, who knows what will happen, but I guess I hope it doesn't happen, because speaking for myself anyway, it's been good having you on. If it does happen, I hope that you tune in as a resident or as a citizen and participate at least via public comment, because I think you have some good insight to give. You've had good insight, and I have no reason to believe that'll go away in the future. So I personally sorry if that happens, but I appreciate the comments. We can pivot now to the next agenda item. So I put on here committee reorganization because we haven't done it in a while and we're supposed to do it every year. And I thought it was a good opportunity to do it as we're stepping into a new phase of the committee. And I'm going to preface it by saying I agonized over. 2 weeks ago, I was going to resign because I just feel like I'm really too strapped on lots of fronts for this. But I've decided that I'm not going to resign. I'd like to stay on the committee, but I need to step down from as chair. I need to, I think for a couple reasons. Most importantly, I just have a lot on my plate and I don't really feel like I'm giving it, and you can agree or disagree with this, but I don't feel like I'm giving it the attention that it deserves, particularly as I look moving forward. I think there's going to be some real leadership there that needs to occur that I'm not sure I'm going to have the time to really to really give what it takes for that. So secondly, even if that wasn't the case, I've been the chair now for 2.5 years, and I think that it's in the health of the committee and by extension in the best interest of the town to have to not necessarily have one person influencing that a board for too long. And so I don't think it's I think that it's good form to rotate the leadership of or the chairpersonship of a committee periodically, and I think that it's probably a good time for me to do that. So I have to step down as chair, but I am going to remain on the committee, provided that everybody will have me. But I do want to continue as a citizen at large member, but I need to step down as chair. So I plan to stay on as chair through this meeting, but I want to do that sort of effective at the end of the meeting. I'd like to pass the torch off to the next person. So I wanted to discuss that this evening, and I guess just hear any other thoughts that any of the other members had relative to if anybody else had any thoughts under this point. Go ahead, Michael Ray.
Well, Mr. Roy, I see that we lost Mr. Passios, but I wanted to comment on him leaving, so I'll wait for him to join back in. But, I think, Greg, you've been an excellent chair, really. I'm not patting you on the back on this one. I think it's been a great experience working with you as the chair of this committee. And I do understand about time commitments, being a selectman certainly is a lot of time on my part. And so I do understand when you have a professional life, just how multiple meetings just kind of can, just you have a family and a house and there's other things that sometimes you have to just prioritize. And so I don't take it as a slight for you stepping down. And I just want to thank you again for your chairmanship over these years and for opting to remain as a member. So.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Greg, I'll echo the sentiments. Appreciate you that you've done as the chair. Kind of disappointed that I understand why, and I'm disappointed that you're wanting to step, looking at this thing, but definitely I look forward to you staying on board and your input as we go forward. After we have to have a couple of us citizens on here,
Yeah.
So in terms of new chairmanship, I certainly don't mind stepping into the role. I don't currently chair any boards or committees, and I'm here anyway. And I think that the select board has given this committee a lot of responsibility, and there's probably a lot of questions that come back to the select board. So it may be appropriate, but certainly I am a member like the rest of you, and I will certainly answer to whatever chair we pick.
Okay. Michael Ray, I actually would very much appreciate that idea if you're willing to step into the chair, because especially as we had the questions about the charter, and everything else about this, having your insight in that position would hopefully streamline this process a little bit. Having the ability to maybe have a non-formal discussion with select members or other folks, I would hope would help us expedite this process quite a bit. So I'll welcome it. I would nominate you if you wanted to do it, but I would like, listen if anybody else would like to step up too.
Yeah, why don't you hold off on the nomination just to make sure no one else is, but I'm not seeing anybody else jumping up and down.
This is what, right, we've all lived in Lunenburg long enough that when they say volunteers, you take the step back, not stand there, right?
Yeah,
All right. Sorry.
so, yeah, it's interesting, because, you know, I don't know, I guess we have the 7-member board that we have now, so, so I guess that, yeah, that's fine. I think that, yeah, so if you wanted to nominate, I was just thinking that what we heard from Dave, if there's going to be a change, then, you know, but that's okay. We have a 7-member board now, and we can make this decision. And I just have to do it. I just don't think I want to start into the next phase here. I can't start into the next phase as chair. So, so if you want to make a nomination, I'd be happy to accept it. I'm not
Matthew,
here.
I think you're on mute.
You might have a, yeah, it's weird.
No,
You might
I
have
don't
a,
think- doesn't
Oh,
show
there you
up
are.
muted.
now
Yep.
I can hear it. Now we can hear you.
So, might I recommend that, if the fact is that we get a different person from finance, maybe, could we put the reorganization off till maybe the next meeting? I mean,
We can do that.
I think reasonable.
Yeah, you could do it. We could do it right at the beginning of the meeting and then just hand it off. That's fine.
Are we gonna get someone from finance right away, or would they take some time because they have to like appoint somebody and then, or would they do that in their next meeting?
Well, we could wait to hold a meeting until they appoint somebody, I suppose, within reason.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't, you know, in fact, I don't know if our discussion today is how often you guys plan on meeting, but you know, I know personally, I can't go back to that schedule we were doing at the end. You know,
No, I think it's
once a
too-
month, once a
it's
month
probably,
was
yeah,
for me.
yeah. The once a week thing and then yeah, leading up to town meeting was killer. But I know some people do that all the time, but it's hard. So, so that's fine if that's that seems like it probably would be the best thing to do.
All right, guy, I have the finance committee agenda for tomorrow, and it states the Municipal Building Design Committee update, discussion, and appointment of finance committee representative. So I think we'll
Okay.
know tomorrow night.
Okay, that's fine. So why don't we wait and then, well, let's get another meeting on the books here before we leave tonight, and with the expectation that there'll be a full meeting, a full board then. Maybe the same, maybe different, but and then we'll I think that's probably fair to do. Go ahead, Michael Ray.
Out of curiosity, I'm curious, is there anyone that's on the committee that no longer wants to serve? That needs to go back to their boards and ask for someone else to be selected? All right. So
That's a good sign.
I was gonna say that I you know, but no, I don't think my board, the wife is petitioning hard the other way, but I'll stay on for a little while. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is too, but I
Yeah.
you know, I struck a compromise. So
Yeah.
my honestly, the thing with me is I'm out. Matt Allison knows this because he's in the same line of work. It's just I go to planning board meetings. Some nights I have a planning board meeting or 2 or 3 after this meeting, you know, on Wednesdays, in addition to Monday nights and Tuesday nights. And it's just my head is just scrambled. So I just have to, I want to participate still, and I will, but I just can't be the guy kind of pulling it all together anymore. So, yeah. So anyway, so let's do that then. I'll stay on as chair for the reading of the public meeting at the next meeting, and getting us to the first agenda item, which will be committee reorganization. And then I'll sort of pass pass the baton, if that's acceptable to everybody. And
That works.
so just then, maybe we could just agree. I think what I'll put on the meat of the next agenda then will just be to discuss kind of like a committee outline or something like that, to discuss process for how the committee would, to start rounding out how we're going to proceed forward. And I see that as sort of the meat and potatoes of what the group would discuss. And then the next chair can have at it, or the reorganized committee can have at it. Okay.
So can I just make a suggestion and you can shoot it down because I know you don't want to be chair anymore? Would it be worth before the next meeting have us email you or somebody else like our thoughts of what a roadmap might be like, so we can like have a
So-
collective idea to discuss it maybe? And then-
I think, yeah, I think putting that on, I'm just going to put the agenda item as discussing a roadmap, but if people want to come up with what their thoughts are and share that with me, I can, I think it could definitely, I would think that would help us move the ball forward on that, at that next meeting, because it is an open-ended question and it's going to be a lot of different decisions. So if we have some stuff written down and we can take some things from one person's and some things from the other person's and blend it together into a good cohesive outline, I think that would be good.
I think it would also be worthwhile for us to, I'm going to borrow Peter Beardmore's phrase here, and his king for a day phrase, or queen for a day. I think it may be beneficial for us to just kind of get creative on our own and say, if we were the mayor of Lunenburg and this was on us to decide ourselves, what would we do? And while I don't think that we need to go into too much detail on that, I think it would be a good starting point for a discussion. If we all kind of brainstorm what our own ideals are here of what we see as an end result, and then I think that may help us kind of dissect where to go. Because we've all been in this for so many years now that I think we all have kind of opinions. So
Yep.
So I'm ready to do that right now, actually, to give you my brainstorm, whatever. So I guess it requires asking a question. Can we give the TCP and the Brooks House back to the schools? That way that takes off 2 of the 5 buildings right off the bat. The land use is already in its own building. They can stay there and not have it change. The town hall can become a community center or the teen center or whatever. And then the new town hall gets built at the old primary. That cleans the slate.
Yeah, interesting thought.
Anyway,
Sorry, I just want to make sure, what buildings are we discussing? Like, what is fair game? Because I know, like, we always talked about TCP, Ritter, Brooks House was brought up at one point, Town Hall. Is Old Primary in there? Is there another building or spot of land that could be brought up as to why we're not using it, or could be repurposed? Like, or is it just essentially those 4 or 5 buildings that we're looking at?
I think the intent is to focus on the TCP and whatever implications there are to the other buildings, we can add that in. I think we're not being asked to come up with a solution for Brooks House. We're not being asked to come up with a solution for Town Hall or Ritter. And the old primary school is I would say, probably off the table because the select board is moving in another direction. So we've already submitted a request to demolish the old primary school. We're actively working with an architect company to come up with a design for a new kind of public space there. And it's the select board's intent at the annual town meeting to put forward an article that's going to resolve that parcel. And if that passes, assuming that same town meeting provides funding for this committee to hire professional support, I think that we will probably have resolved, if that passes, that will be resolved and off the table. But we'll know better
Okay,
after
but
spring
I
town
was
meeting.
gonna say, so it could, but if it doesn't pass, then it could be, you know, it could crop itself up into the discussion again, I suppose. So
Yeah.
I don't think that the charge as they presented it takes that off the table.
No.
Right. So, I mean, I think that would be included, you know, I mean, they just basically said municipal buildings. But, you know, there's a lot of different permutations that can happen. But I think specifically to answer your question, I don't think it's off the table. I think it's, but I understand Michael Ray's point too. I also understand Matthew Allison's point. He's not the first person I've heard around town that has said that. So,
Yeah,
you know.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
So Mr. Chair, I look at
Yeah.
it as that's exactly what we have, is that I think over the next time, few things, we are gonna come up with options and what we feel are the best options available for this town. And, in the end, is it our decision to say which option's best? Or is this something that we bring to the folks and folks decide? That, what Matthew just described might be one option. There could be, we could end up with 5 options. Who knows? But, I hope it's not 5 because I like to get, not give people that many choices. But at least that's what I feel our charter is. Our charter is to bring the options, and then somebody's got to decide to fund this thing. Because in the end, we have no idea how we don't have any idea how $20 million, how far $20 million goes.
Yeah, I think you're gonna generate options, and then I think you're gonna be like, and then I think you're gonna have to spend some money to figure out how much the options are gonna cost. And then one option is going to emerge to the top, or 1 or 2 options are going to emerge to the top. Maybe that might be the way it happens.
Right, but we're not the ones that might be deciding on which option we want to fund, right? Because like I said, we went in this thing thinking $20 million was a lot of money. We walked out of this thing realizing $20 million is nothing. When you look at the TC Passios thing, right? I mean, we couldn't do anything for $20 million at that point.
Right.
So anyway, that's just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's good. Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks. Yeah, just to piggyback on those ideas, I think it makes sense that we're going to probably come up with 5 or so or whatever options. And maybe it's similar to what they did with the survey last time at the prior town meeting, where they had a survey to get some information from the town, and maybe we show them those 5 options where they're somewhat cost effective, and then what their priorities are, what of the 5 options make the most sense, rank them 1 through 5, whatever. And then once we have their top priorities, then we could spend some money on an architect to get a cost of what the town actually wants, rather than paying for the cost estimates for 5 different options.
So lots of ways it could go, but I agree with all that, in general. I think could be an interesting process like it was last time. All right, so I'll make sure that agenda is published with plenty of time here. When let me just one second. Ah, shoot. Does anybody have the agenda in front of them?
Yeah, I have it in front of me.
What was my next agenda topic?
Yeah, review and approve minutes.
Okay, we don't have any minutes. Next,
Correspondence to and from the committee.
anybody have any correspondence to or from the committee to share? No.
New business.
New business is a catch-all for if we had anything that didn't fit into any other place in the agenda and it was appropriate to discuss. So anybody have anything that they wanted to bring up that we haven't discussed already?
I do. So I've got a couple of pages documents that I got from Town Hall about the funding for the current teen center. And it was from the Mossman. I think I may have mentioned this once or twice before at this meeting, with this group, maybe not these same members, but the funding that was used to build the teen center was from a gift to the town that was earmarked, that was gifted for agricultural education. Now, I don't see any of that happening at the teen center. And if that building does get reused, then I would strongly recommend that we take a very strong look at how that building could be reused for agricultural education.
Would you mind providing me that information, Mr. Allison? Because that's rather
Not at all.
concerning
I
to me.
thought you might ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
So is that building's owned by the town? It's not a private quasi-public entity?
No, it's owned by the town.
It's owned by the town of Lunenburg. They have it to
Yeah.
the town of Lunenburg. Okay.
Is that
Which-
the Boys and Girls Club? Or
Yeah,
is
Yes.
that the- Okay.
Yes.
yeah.
Wh-
Used
which-
to be called the Teen Center, and then they kind of
Yeah.
renamed.
And we probably lucked out on someone not contesting our procurement laws uh, by having it built privately and then almost immediately donated to the town.
Don't know what to say.
Um,
Well, that's legit. I mean, you know, try to do that with the skate park right now, and Attorney Costa has advised us that you know, there's a way to do that. So, but anyway, that's good insight, Matt.
Thank you.
Anybody else
Next
have
is
any?
a future meeting schedule.
Yeah, future meeting schedule. So what would we like to do here? I'm pulling up my calendar.
My preference is to push our start time back just a little bit to 5:45.
5:45. Yeah, that's fine. So on the 9th, so we could maybe we could look at the 2nd, and well, I know that Dave Blatt's gonna have a meeting on the 9th because I'm coming before him.
I'm gonna have a school committee meeting on the 2nd, and they want to do it earlier than 7 too.
So we could look at a different night of the week. Let's see,
Matthew, what night's your meeting?
Mondays, right?
Second and fourth Mondays. So, and then third Thursday for AdCom.
So if you're looking at it, maybe the first or third Monday? So the first Monday would be the 7th.
Yeah, that would work for me.
It would work for me. And I think that probably puts us in a better position so that way we meet before the select board meetings and really all the other meetings of the week. So that way we, we're not finding ourselves in a position where, to Mr. Paslos's point.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So yeah, you want to try to shoot for the 7th, February 7th? And then we can let the next committee decide because we may or may not have a new member.
Michael Ray, did you have a time constraint on Mondays?
No, anytime after 5.
30.
Well, I mean, I really like the early start. So you're saying you could do it on 5:30 on Monday?
Yes.
Does that work for everybody? 5:30 still on Monday?
Yes.
Okay,
Much better. Like the early
Five-
start.
5:30 on Monday, the 7th. Perfect. Okay.
You're
All right,
okay,
and
Matt,
then,
giving up all your Mondays? I was saying, Matt, you're okay giving up all your Mondays?
Oh, I've still got one left. Mondays suck anyway, so.
That's true. It's true. All right. Good. So what did I have next?
I think that was it. I just got
Was it
out of it to look at the calendar.
public comment then?
Yep.
Is there any public comment from the public? I'm gonna try to unmute this.
Yeah, I think I saw Rhonda's hand up
Yeah.
at some point.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can unmute.
I know that means, Rhonda, that I'm getting used to your phone number.
Rhonda, I am trying to unmute you, but I'm not sure I know how to do it. I'm asking you to unmute, but I'm not sure how that works on the phone.
Peter's raising his hand now.
Yeah, I see that. I was just trying to give, hold on, Peter.
She
I don't
looks to be
have a
unmuted.
comment.
Yeah.
You don't? Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't.
No, I was just listening in. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right, okay. Thanks, Rhonda.
Okay.
Okay, Peter, go ahead.
Good evening.
Evening.
So wasn't the intent of my comment, but Matt Allison's comment about the Mossman building. I recall that being a hot issue at the time. My neighbor, Drew Benally, worked for Chester Mossman way back in the day. and had some serious issues with those funds being put to use for a teen center that did not have agricultural programming at the time. And it was pretty thoroughly heard by the select board at the time when they made the decision to allow for those funds to be used for those purposes. But, you know, obviously if we get into the business of reuse, I think that's a very valid conversation to have. My real intent for comments though tonight, you covered a lot of this ground, but I think that number one, this committee needs to be very specific with the town manager and the finance director and the finance committee for that matter, around establishing financial parameters that make sense, and not necessarily the financial parameter for 2023, but really the financial parameters for the next decade that incorporate all of the projects that have been talked about tonight. And I think that, you know, one of the ways that we can build that 67% consensus is to come up with a roadmap that might be multiple pieces, right? Maybe we bring town hall up to snuff first and then do something at the TC Passios property and then do something with Ritter, or any one of those combinations, but allow the town to agree on the plan of record that's been used so many times. I think one of the problems with the plan of record was that nobody really knew who agreed to that plan of record initially. And most people, their initial reaction was, well, why didn't I get a say in the plan of record? And I think that part of the opportunity for this committee is to give the townspeople a say in that plan of record and then demonstrate following that roadmap as closely as is practical over a period of time. And I personally don't think that this is going to be one project. I think that it's probably going to be a few projects. The other thing that I wanted to offer to this committee, because there were no specific parameters put around specific properties, is, you know, in my view, anything within the bounds of the town of Lunenburg is in scope, potentially to include property that we don't own. And so, you know, Mike LeRae called out my king for a day statement. I've shared with him my king for a day scenario is we buy the property in front of the public safety building and turn that into a modest, purpose-built municipal office building. And that solves second egress problems for the public safety building. It will share parking and will have adequate parking for a modest, purpose-built municipal office building. And then we can think about reuse of the other buildings in town that don't fit into that building. I would encourage everybody to go to Google right now and type in Lunenburg Police Department and see what image pops up. And then tell me if you feel comfortable with that image. So anyway, just throwing that out there. I think that we shouldn't limit ourselves, particularly not in the early going of establishing a roadmap. Thank you very much for the time.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, any other public comment from the committee? Okay, Michael Ray.
I have two. So the first is kind of want to pick up where Peter left off in some parts. That, you know, a resident talked to me in the last week and they said, why hasn't the town ever thought about buying the former Twin City Baptist Church thing? That you have a gym, you have a large parking area, that you have a building that was designed for some children use. You also have portions that were designed for municipal use, and the total square footage seems to fit right into what we're looking for. And, you know, it really got me thinking outside of the box of, you know, maybe that is a conversation we need to have. That, you know, if we can acquire a property that meets all of our needs for $2 million or $1 million, maybe that's the solution. You know, I really don't know, but I think it would be helpful for us to kind of to approach this thinking outside of the box, that there has been a strong focus on having a municipal center. I think we've heard that phrase a lot over the last several years. But when you look at what's happening across the Commonwealth, we're not in a unique situation. This is a conversation that I have with Representative Kushmarek and Senator Cronin almost every time we talk, which is that every single town in the Commonwealth is having the same problem of what do you do with your aging town halls and the fact that there are zero state funds to help support us. And a lot of towns have taken the approach of using old schools. That's a model that's been used in many cases, but for the most part, we're all kind of in this problem. And what some communities are doing is a lot of times what you see, the communities that have solved this problem, they've gone a multi-use route, and often it's been away from their town center. So, I would just encourage us to think outside of the box for that. And then the second part of this is that, this is not happening inside of a vacuum, that there's two other kind of really big things that are occurring at the same time. That we're also looking at, the select board is looking at a comprehensive tax cut for seniors. And while that sounds kind of ridiculous, the reality is that people's tax rates are higher than their mortgages ever were. And we have many retirees, people who retired in the 90s that just aren't at the income threshold that some of us are at today. And they're finding Lunenburg to be incredibly unaffordable. And so we're looking for a solution that will address seniors who've been in town for a certain period of time and looking to taxes always go up. So I won't say fully tax cut, but the intent at this point is to minimize those increases for a certain section of the population. That means that we're going to have to make up some money somewhere. And it's easy for us to talk about spending, but the conversation I had with the town manager over the last week is we really need to focus on revenue. That when I ran for office a few years back, almost 3 years ago, so there were two things that I cared about. One was cared a lot about three things: seniors and what we're doing for seniors. Second thing is our building problem that we're having. And the third thing is solar panels on our old town dump. That it doesn't make any sense to me to have that much acreage where we can do nothing with besides make money off of, and we haven't made any money off of it. And so I think that a lot of things are going to be happening at the same time. That as we come to town to talk about how we're going to spend money in this area, my personal hope is that we also have a plan for how the town's going to generate income for multiple years to come that has nothing to do with the residential tax base in town. And that really is our focus. And I think that with that type of significant revenue, if we think about that huge project, that eyesore that's on Northfield Road, if we were to have something similar to that on our own property and all that money was coming to us, that will fully pay for our building that we need. And it will, and based on the numbers that I've looked at so far, it would probably pay for these tax decreases or not so much tax increases. So my comment tonight really is just to say that we're working in consortium on a lot of things, but really these are some big tasks that we have in front of us. And I'm confident that if we do this in a collaborative way, that we will get to a solution that everyone can hold their nose to and keep going and move forward with.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks. I look forward to the work that we're going to be doing. If Dave, if it's his last meeting, I just wanted to put on the record that I appreciated his insights, his knowledge, his background, and his work on the committee, and enjoyed working with him. Also, I want to say that Greg, I appreciate your leadership and your knowledge in the whole process too, and really appreciate your work as the chair. So thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Anybody else? Okay, I think we are ready to adjourn. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there
Second.
a second? Okay,
Second.
I will take a roll call vote. Brian Leighton,
Yes.
Matthew Allison,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Dave Blatt,
Aye.
and Michael Ray Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for me. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you on the 7th of February at 5:30 via Zoom.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Taxes due.
Enjoy, guys.
First.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, everybody.